So, Omni-man vs. Bardock was a death battle, I guess. A very poorly made and kind of just badly scaled one, but it's one that people seem to like. I think the only reason they really like it is because the animation's pretty good. I mean, they have Devil Artemis doing it, but a good animation doesn't justify the unbelievably poor scaling in it. However, there's still people out there who try to defend death battle somehow. And how do they do this? Well, Dr. Ignant, or whatever his name is, I'm going to refer to him as Dr. Ignorant for the rest of this video, because how just blatantly wrong he is on like 90% of what he says, claims that Omni-man stomps Bardock. And once you watch this video, you can see very clearly this guy doesn't even know what the fuck he's talking about. Yet still has the audacity to insult the entire Dragon Ball fandom as in this is just another Goku vs. Superman or something. It's not. People who think Goku beats Superman are they're stupid. Like, they're dumb people. They don't even know what they're talking about. People who think Bardock beats Omni-man are not the same people who think Goku beats Superman. I'm sure those people are still in the little group, but there's a lot more people who would see Bardock versus Omni-man as a fight Bardock would win, realistically, than people who think Goku would realistically beat Superman if they know both characters.
Yo, can somebody get Bardock to like MFTL Plus and beyond planetary, please?
Well, even Death Battle has him at Beyond Planetary and faster than MFTL Plus, and they're the ones everyone thinks lowballed him. So, can you explain how he's not Beyond Planetary and FTL Plus? Like, are you going to have an argument for that in this whole video, or are you just going to, like, leave it there? Break something down for you real quick. Bardock's power level in base is 10,000. You can go, no, it's not. It's pretty consistently there, in even the canon timeline. King Vegeta's at 10,000. I think you saw this in the Death Battle if you watched it. King Vegeta casually with a fucking hand swipe blew up 3 planets. That's beyond planetary, buddy. And Death Battle claims these planets are smaller than Earth. That is kind of inconsistent given that everybody that's ever talked about sizes of planets in Dragon Ball, like Nappa for instance, thinks Earth is a small planet. So realistically they should be bigger than Earth, and even if they were just Earth size, that feat would get bumped up to like star level. It's actually so far into star level, it's above the solar disk calc they have in the Death Battle, which would have given base Bardock a higher power level in like AP than Omni-man has with their wanked scaling. So there's his beyond planetary, as you put it. And how's he FTL? Well, let's see, Kid Goku can dodge fucking lightning and light, and Kid Goku's power level was like barely 200-ish by the end of Dragon Ball. He dodges the lightning and light long before then, by the way. And then Bardock's over here at 10,000. Power levels in Dragon Ball make you faster. So right there, even with that low-balled ass scaling, he'd be FTL. That's just like consistent for Dragon Ball. So ignoring characters weaker than him can blitz people like Kid Gohan, like Nappa can blitz Kid Gohan early on. And Kid Gohan's a guy who can react to Ki Blast, even in the Saiyan Saga. Ki Blast at that point are light speed, which means obviously Nappa is faster than light speed. Are you seeing this chain of logic here? And did you also forget that Death Battle had Bardock at like several trillion times the speed of light off filler content? And I know you can go, that's incredibly inconsistent. It really isn't, because we see the speed massively multiply throughout the series, like to the point where characters that are like barely stronger than another character are outright blitzing them, just with like a 25% increase to power. We also see one-shots multipliers in that same range. So power levels are kind of like decibels. They just kind of multiply as they go up. But, yeah, I guess you just assumed Bardock was, like, under-planetary, despite him pretty consistently being above planetary, as even characters weaker than him like Raditz are considered planetary. And you also somehow assume that he's under FTL when even Kid Goku's arguably FTL, and Kid Goku's like not even 1/10 of his power level. It's also ignoring the characters like Piccolo can blow up the moon with so much force it's planetary, and Piccolo at the point when he did that is way weaker than Bardock in base, even when he'd be like suppressed. So there's your planetary scaling.
Thanks to Death Battle, this versus matchup is more popular than it should be, or more popular than it was before. But the Dragon Ball fandom is mad at the fact that Bardock lost to Omni-man within the Death Battle. But it's pretty accurate because Omni-man actually does beat Bardock. A lot of people would say, well, they're not even planetary to thrill them to destroy a planet. So
Are you serious? Most people aren't arguing he's not planetary. They're arguing it took 3 of them to destroy Viltrum, plus the Infinity Ray, which means he doesn't scale to the full power output of Viltrum like Death Battle has him scaling to. Death Battle's acting like he didn't have help. That's why people are mad. He had help destroying Viltrum, did he not? Did he also not, did they also not acknowledge they would die if they hit the planet before the Infinity Ray hit the planet? Like, they literally acknowledged they would die if the beam didn't hit the planet first. Meaning he doesn't even scale to destroying the planet by himself, as he quite literally could not without dying. That is what people are mad about. They're not mad about, oh, he's not even planetary. I'm sure there's some people saying that. But most people with the brain cell are mad that they scaled him wrong, which they did.
Just be quiet real quick. Why would that feat just not be an outlier, especially since there's so many other feats that get these characters, especially Omni-man, past planetary?
Why would the feat just not be an outlier? So you're not even going to try to defend it? Or like argue that Viltrum's bigger or stronger than normal planet, which it is. Viltrum is fucking massive, by the way. Viltrum is way stronger than normal planet. It took a star level beam in order to destabilize its core. The planet Viltrum is pretty damn durable. But you're not even going to try to defend that? You're just going to skip over and go, oh, it's an outlier planet. Like, do you not even know Invincible and you're trying to defend it? Are you serious? The Viltrum feat's a lot more impressive than it sounds on paper. Like, it is unironically potentially a large planetary feat for Omni-man with a higher calc for it. And you're over here like, oh, we're just going to forget it because it's an outlier. How is destroying Viltrum, probably the most impressive feat in the entire main series, by the way, an outlier? It's like the biggest feat for Omni-man in his entire series outside the crossovers. And the crossovers are incredibly inconsistent, obviously, as they're acting like he's like galaxy level, despite him getting his ass beat by people who die inside stars. So yeah, you're wrong. Planet Viltrum isn't an outlier. It's a pretty impressive feat. But sure.
The second time Omnipotus entered the Invincible world, he was ready to fight. We know this because he tells us verbatim that he was restoring his power before he came into this world completely. Which the way that he restores his power is quite literally by destroying celestial bodies and then absorbing the energy that comes from that destruction. This energy runs through his body and increases his durability. And yet a character weaker than Omni-man known as Dinosaurus one-shotted him.
You're forgetting a major part of Omnipotus' whole thing is that he causes chain reactions to destroy the celestial bodies he destroys, which means he isn't having like solar system levels of energy, as he's going one by one basically over time. A supernova isn't solar system level. I know some people like to think it is. The average supernova is not a solar system level thing. It can mess up a solar system and knock the planets away and destroy a lot of it, but it's not solar system level. Meaning, at best, he's scaling to, like, large star on a consistent level, and you could hype him up to, like, solar system. But even with that, in the anime, stuff like Frieza destroying Planet Vegeta is solar system level. And before someone goes, how is that even, like, remotely close to solar? Well, Planet Vegeta has 2 yellow stars as moons in the anime. The manga, it doesn't, and then newer stuff, they act like it doesn't, with them just kind of replacing them with really big moons now. But originally it was yellow stars, and seeing as they went off the old stuff and the new stuff for Dragon Ball, and we don't really have a concrete answer on if the new moons or the canon moons or the actual moons or the stars anymore, you could unironically argue Super Saiyan Bardock, who's barely weaker than Frieza, who nuked that planet with stars as moons with one finger, scales to solar system level casually, which would also scale him up to this wanked ass scaling you're pulling out of your ass now. And before someone tries to argue this is like super inconsistent, Planet Vegeta isn't the only planet in Dragon Ball to have like multiple stars as potentially moons, as even Namek has 3 suns. Realistically, the only way you're gonna have 3 suns in a normal solar system and get them the same way they show up on Namek is if either they're your moons, which doesn't make sense in real life, but it's Dragon Ball, and Dragon Ball barely follows real life logic 90% of the time. Or you live in one really, really fucking weird solar system with 3 stars that magically aren't destroying your planet or sending you flying all over the place, and also somehow move around you despite you being there, and you should be rotating around them. Either way, Namek should be massive, which is kind of consistent seeing as his explosion was so powerful, it was seen lighting up a decent portion of an entire galaxy. So saying that Planet Vegeta isn't having stars as moons isn't consistent is kind of inconsistent in of itself, as every planet other than Earth and Dragon Ball seems to be absolutely colossal compared to like real life planets.
Canon crossover with the Tick, Invincible grabs the Tick and hits the moon so hard that it's sent to Mars. This is all before the characters in question could realize what happened.
That's not that impressive compared to like literally everything you just said. Why is this feat even here? Knocking the moon into Mars really fast? Woo boy, both Omni-Man and Bardock massively upscale anything even remotely around that level casually. So why even bring this feat up? It's honestly kind of trash compared to like even the lower ends for both characters.
Even though they were blatantly observing his movements beforehand. There's also the fact that Omni-Man still made it Supreme, who is stronger than Suprema. Someone who is so strong that they can literally punch away black holes.
So you're going to scale Omni-Man to a guy who can punch away black holes because a statement in a crossover that is pretty blatantly, extremely inconsistent with the main series, and is so shaky that not even Death Battle themselves even touched it. Okay then, let's assume Omni-Man can just punch away black holes. Why was Omni-Man going to just fly into a black hole and die in the show? He was going to use that black hole to essentially end himself. If he could just punch away black holes, how would that black hole even be strong enough to just rip him apart if he should passively scale above it? Because he apparently can just casually smack them around now. Also, how was Omni-Man going to die from a star-level cannon, the Infinity Ray, a gun whose best feat in the entire canon of the show involves either the Viltrumite feat or blowing up a star in the show? And Omni-Man himself is the one who says this can just kill Viltrumites, which it can do. We see it happen. So if Omni-Man is like weak to this gun, he's susceptible to this gun that's only star level off feats, how are you going to go argue that he can punch around black holes? When he gets shot by this gun, he's just dead. But he can punch around black holes, even though we've never seen him do that. And it's hyper inconsistent. That's meat writing in its purest form right there, ladies and gentlemen. That is akin to me arguing that Bardock scales to Heroes shit. Because Heroes shit is kind of soft canon now with some of the weird shit they've been adding in through Super. And you could unironically argue that if you want to go real stupid. Which is what you're doing right now. You could also unironically argue that Bardock scales to Uni Plus off the Dead Zone, which is kind of very shakily canon. Although it's argued non-canon by a lot of people, you can't really 100% say it is. You arguing off a crossover that Omni-Man can punch around black holes, but in his own verse, he's narratively implied to die from a black hole if he were to go into it. He's also weaker than Thrag, who died inside a star. I know someone's going to be like, heat's the weakness of Viltrumites. What isn't heat the weakness to, for one? That's like in any verse. That if heat isn't your weakness, then you're specifically designed to resist it. Otherwise, it's your fucking weakness. So stop pulling that bullshit. Heat's everything's weakness. And then moving on from that, he's also susceptible to the Infinity Ray, a star-level gun that we know upscales him, as it did more damage to Viltrum than he did. It tore right through Viltrum. He would have died on impact if the gun hadn't hit it. That's the narrative implications there. So the gun is narratively implied to be stronger than him, and its best feat is a star bust. So you're arguing you punch around black holes because a crossover that's hyper inconsistent, as you just pointed out. But Viltrum's an outlier, though, despite being far more consistent with like everything narratively implied. But him punching around black holes, that's totally consistent with all the anti-feats he has throughout the entire series. Normally, I don't like anti-feats, but Omni-Man has so many that say he could not punch around a black hole or kick around stars, as you're about to say, that it's impossible not to bring them up if someone's using that as an actual scaling chain. What you're doing is akin to me saying that Bardock scales to the Dead Zone, which is kind of like in the same kind of canon but hyper shaky territory as the crossover's Invincible. The Dead Zone's arguably a four-dimensional thing, and even Kid Gohan can infect it. Bardock's stronger than Kid Gohan. Is he Uni Plus now? Does Bardock get Uni Plus scaling because he scales to the dead zone? That's the logic you're going off here.
And play kickball with stars. This is also ignoring the fact that Supreme has destroyed planets before. We're also told that in the Image Comics verse, Viltrumites are the strongest creatures in the entirety of the multiverse, meaning that Omni-Man would be stronger than Goral. Goral is literally a galaxy who is strong enough to absorb the Milky Way galaxy. Since him
And tell me, what backs up Omni-Man being galaxy level other than one half-ass statements? Nothing. Nothing implies that. He's gonna die inside a black hole. He would have died hitting Viltrum. He's weaker than a gun that's best feat is star level. Some of his best early on feats only get into the moon to like a very small planetary range. He's consistently around multi-continental with his casual attacks. He is never shown doing anything even remotely close to galaxy level unless you hype up Omnipotus to like stupid levels. Despite Omnipotus very clearly, just by the own logic of Invincible, not scaling directly to his full destructive capacity, as its chain reactions, and those are overall less energy than one-shotting a solar system. He has to do it through a chain reaction, meaning his durability is in solar system levels, I already explained. It's getting up there, but it's not quite there, because he didn't just nuke the solar system and absorb all that. No, he just like blew it up one thing at a time, slowly. Not necessarily slowly, like over days or months, but it's over time. It's not instantaneous. And you're still forgetting, like, to scale Bardock. Where the fuck is Bardock scaling here? You just forget that? You just forget this is a verse match? You just only talk about Omni-Man. Did you forget Bardock is in the conversation? I mean, you're arguing he's not even FTL and planetary, and even Death Battle said he's brown dwarf star level. And in the very, very high range event, massively faster than light, they actually had him above Omni-Man, if you forgot. So, are you just gonna only talk about Omni-Man's feats and then rely more on statements from stuff outside the main canon of the story? Like, half of what you're pulling out is from crossovers. Which, again, I could pull from some soft canon stuff, the Dragon Ball, like the Dead Zone, and get Bardock to fucking Universal. But I'm not, because that's stupid. That's a stupid way to scale a character. That's like the dumbest way to scale a character. That's like me going into like fucking the Monsterverse and arguing, since the DC crossover is kind of soft canon to the Monsterverse, but non-canon to DC, since they say it's soft canon, they just scaled a Prime Earth Superman because there's some weird statement that says the Superman there is equal to that Superman, which is hyper inconsistent, obviously. That's also like me arguing that since the creator of Invincible said Omni-Man beats Superman, Omni-Man beats Superman. It's just stupid logic based entirely on statements that can't even be fully backed up, as they aren't even from the main series. They aren't even meant to imply to the main series. They're from, like, 90% of this is crossover shit. Which isn't, I mean, it's kind of canon to the main series, but it isn't at all consistent. I don't think anyone's going to argue with me that it's not, that it's consistent. It isn't. It's pretty blatantly not.
Traveling a section of the universe gets him to around 3.39 billion times the speed of light.
It's pretty fast, I'll give you that, but one, Death Battle scales Bardock way faster than that off filler content, which, like your little crossovers, is sort of canon to a degree. Two, Bardock actively scales pretty fucking high into the blitzing light timer category 2, which is what Omni-Man is far more consistently shown to be. 3, there are direct statements in official Invincible guides that imply that they bend space-time when they fly, which is an anti-feat that you fail to bring up. Well, I personally think this is bullshit, in that they are actually around the speed you claim they are. There is official statements that actively hurt the scaling of the verse that you simply neglect. So, maybe learn what a fucking anti-feat is, and actually apply those to your own scaling and find a way to debunk them before hyping Omni-Man's speed up. Even though, assuming you're going with this to try to claim that the Death Battle was right and Omni-Man beats Bardock, I mean, you didn't even prove Omni-Man's faster than what they said he is. In fact, I think you have him exactly where they claimed he is, which is so much slower than where they had Bardock, you couldn't even see the line if they were accurately shown. The line for Omni-man in the little chart they had would be so small it'd be almost invisible. Whereas Bardock's would take up like the whole screen because he's in like the massively trillions of times faster in light filler shit due to the multipliers of Super Saiyan and Grade 8, which they didn't have to scale. I wonder why.
Would literally just get one-shotted after being blitzed out of his fucking mind.
I'm sorry, did I miss something? Where was the Bardock scaling? Were you serious when you said someone please get him above FTL and planetary? Do you actually believe Bardock is not FTL and planetary? Despite characters with his exact power level having, as Death Battle claims, Brown Dwarf Star level feats. Despite King Vegeta blowing up 3 planets, planets in Dragon Ball, Earth is a small planet in Dragon Ball. They have these planets as smaller than Earth for some fucking reason, even though canonically they should be larger. And even if they were just Earth-sized or around Earth-size, this would be a star level feat, bigger than the solar disk, as I think I already explained earlier. But Bardock isn't planetary. King Vegeta is somehow stronger, despite them having the same fucking power level. And Super Saiyan Bardock is comparable to First Form Frieza, who is arguably solar system level in the fucking anime, as he can casually one-shot Planet Vegeta, which has stars as moons. But because Bardock fucking, he ain't even planetary, I guess. Super Saiyan Bardock isn't a planet buster, according to this guy. He just doesn't get there. He just can't. It's impossible for him. You get him to planetary. You can't find anything that says he is. You know, the feats aren't consistently above that or anything. Bardock also apparently is an FTL, despite Kid Goku dodging light, as I already explained, and having a power level of like 1/20th of Bardock's base when he did this in the original anime. He's just not FTL. He can't be. No character in Dragon Ball's ever been FTL, I guess. You know, despite normal Ki Blast in Dragon Ball getting FTL like pretty casually, like Vegeta's beam to the moon is FTL, and he did that with one finger with a power level way under Bardock. The way I see it, if you're gonna defend something that everybody pretty much unanimously agrees is wrong, at least every power scaler knows what the hell they're talking about. Maybe at least scale the other character or know a damn thing about what you're talking about before you lowball them to oblivion, insult the people talking about it, proceed to only pull statements and completely ignore all the feats and narrative implications. The very character you're defending, and then actively lowball one of the characters you're defending's feats because it's an outlier despite being his most impressive showing in the entire main series, just so you can bullshit away to argue all crossover shit, and completely ignore that the character you're arguing is weaker, also has some very soft canon, very shaky scaling that can get him to like universal. In other words, this guy doesn't know how to power scale, and it's kind of embarrassing.